Going live now. Live.
Okay, good afternoon and welcome to everyone watching online or at home and the ample amount of people in our audience to the Corporate and Community Services Standing Committee
Recording
agenda.
in progress.
And I shall start again. Take two. Welcome to everyone on this Monday, October 3rd to the Community and Corporate and Community Services Standing Committee. Thank you for watching from home, and thank you to the ample amount of people that have come out to watch us live. This will be, I assume, the last Corporate and Community Standings Committee of this term. So I want to thank everyone that sat on this committee. Councillor Carrier, welcome for the last 8 months. You've brought a lot of education, and we appreciate you having here. And I'm not, my glasses are off, but I mean it.
Yes. It's been my pleasure to sit here and serve alongside all of you.
Thanks. Marion, thank you for chairing for 2 years. You did a great job. Steve, thanks for all your input in every meeting we've had this term. Right now, our mayor is on a call with the MP or MPP to deal with town business, so he will be a little bit late today. So that being said, Councillor Carrier, would you like to do the First Nations, please? The last one.
Thank you. For more than 15,000 years, the First Nations walked upon and cared for the lands we now call home. Anishinaabek, Haudenosaunee, and Ojibwe, and many others who were families, friends, and communities the way we are today. The town of Collingwood acknowledges the Lake Simcoe-Nottawasaga Treaty of 1818 and the relationship it establishes with the original inhabitants of Turtle Island. We acknowledge the reality of our shared history and the current contributions of Indigenous people within our community. We seek to continue empowering expressions of pride amongst all of the diverse stakeholders in this area. We seek to do better and to continue to recognize, learn, and grow in friendship and community, nation to nation.
Thank you very much. Next to the adoption of the agenda, can I get a mover and a seconder? Moved by Vice Chair, Deputy Mayor McLeod, seconded by Councillor Carrier, that the content of the Corporate and Community Services Standing Committee agenda for October 3rd be adopted as presented. All those in favor? That is unanimous. Any business arriving from the previous meeting? Seeing none. Any declarations of pecuniary interest? Seeing none. If for some reason in this long agenda that you find yourself that you've forgotten to mention it now, we can mention it then. Departmental updates. 5.1. Customer service updates. Executive Director Pegg and Customer Service Manager Masiak. Welcome. This is, we have some very important customer service, so welcome.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Chair, Madigan, and committee members. I am pleased to be here this afternoon with our customer service manager, Ingrid Masiak, and we're pleased to be here to provide you a division update. First slide, please. Next slide, please. Fabulous. Thank you. So in 2019, the Strategic Initiatives Committee received a report from the then CAO, Fareed Amen, about the need for organizational changes to strengthen the town's ability to deliver better services more efficiently. This report set the stage for the path we're now on under the leadership of CAO Skinner. The underlying principle of the report was to build a modern, collaborative, 21st century public organization, optimizing synergies across the organization by bundling related services and creating centers of excellence. And customer service was one of these centers. Customer service included the creation of an integrated customer service initiative across the organization, as well as the introduction of formal customer and corporate services department. Customer service priorities identified in the report included customer service standards, so the introduction of those, monitoring and reporting on customer service usage, we'll say, for lack of a better word, determining hours of service, and better utilization of technology to enhance the customer experience. The customer service department was formed at the latter part of 2019, and our customer service manager, who I'm very pleased is here today, joined the town in early 2020. So with that, I will turn it over to Ms. Masiak, who will provide an update on all of the progress that's been made to date.
Thank you, Executive Director Pegg. And we're on the next slide. Perfect. So I first just wanted to share some contact volumes and trending. So you can see the information highlighted here is starting from 2020, so the year over year to this year. And you can see there has been an increase year over year in contacts to our department specifically. So I will say this is highlighting contacts to the customer service team specifically. And it would highlight anything from in-person support, phone, email, social media. Right now, we're sitting at about 155% of last year's volumes on average. Obviously, some of the summer months are higher, and you can see, of course, this is good news for us as a customer service team. I take it as a good news story since we want customers to interact through that kind of consistent first point of contact with our team. And then as such, we have the ability to bring you things like this and trends and tracking hot topics and provide citizens with that first level of support. But of course, this does add extra pressures to our customer service ambassadors and our ability to meet service level commitments. And as such, we do try to, promote our online services and self-serve options as much as possible as well. We have listed a couple of our top contact drivers so far this year. So you can see taxis, waterfront parking, and downtown parking are our top three. And as such, kind of recognizing these drivers, we've partnered pretty closely with our finance and bylaw teams to make sure that we've skilled up and cross-trained to be able to support these, like that first contact as much as possible and avoid having to forward them to other groups. And of course, we continue to do that with the other departments across the town. Slide, please. So just a bit about our customer service standards and a satisfaction survey. So earlier this year, we've posted our customer service standards to the website. These standards outline our expected response time when folks contact us through our customer service team. So for example, if you give us a call, if we're not able to answer your call live, we strive to return that call within 24 hours. In fact, most are actually returned same day, so we do try to exceed when we can. Of course, more complex inquiries may need to be directed to a department expert, and that can take a little bit more time, so we do our best to provide timelines for that. In Q4 last year, we launched our customer service survey. So there's a couple ways you can access this survey. It's online on our website, at the bottom as a link in our emails if you've received a response from us, or we also have a kiosk at Town Hall. We've gotten some good results so far, actually overwhelmingly positive so far, which is actually nice to hear because oftentimes people take too much time to leave the negative feedback. So we are seeing the positive feedback, which is great, but of course all feedback is welcome. Next slide. I'm super excited about this update. So regarding our customer service management software, we are currently in the award stage of the RFP, and we're looking forward and gearing up to working with the successful proponent on launching this software. And really, we aim to do a couple things. So we look for this software to provide efficiencies in service delivery, namely being able to support that end-to-end closed-loop resolution, ensuring that cases are actioned, customers are followed up on, so our citizens have answers, and of course, we're not perfect, but there'll be alerts if there's anything that is outstanding and needs attention. So we look for this to improve communication between staff and citizens. We're going to be providing options for customers to research common issues and have an easy way to report an issue online, so it takes a little bit of the guesswork out of it. And then on the administrative side, we'll have a lot more robust reporting and documentation so that we'll be able to use that information as a baseline for service levels for all of our departments, and aiming to set those goals in 2023 and 2024 to complement the customer service standards that we already have today in place. Next slide, please. So just a bit of a high-level update with regard to the support of all departments. We actually get a majority of our inquiries through phone, about 43%. And to help make it easier for customers to reach us, we've made a few updates in the phone option. So when somebody calls in, more or less at the top of the menu. People can dial 0 right away to come directly to our customer service team. So if they're not sure which department they need to reach, we're taking the guesswork out of that for them. And additionally, if somebody's calling, a staff member directly, they may get voicemail. If they're not, immediately able to respond, they can still press 0 and speak to customer service. So we're trying to make it as easy as possible for folks to get support right away. And then on top of that, as we continue to skill up and cross-train, we aim to provide more general support for as many questions as possible for those common inquiries. Next slide, please. An exciting update, hot off the press, beginning October 9th, so although sort of already in the works, our recreation service staff are going to officially be joining the corporate customer service team. So they'll be joining my team, which I'm really super excited about. And really the intent here is to build efficiencies by having all customer service staff under one team. So we look to improve communication across the teams to ensure the frontline staff have the information and updates they need to support their roles. Really, we see this as the next leg in our evolution of customer service, and be looking to cross-train staff for basic functions at both the pool and at town hall to allow for coverage. Potentially, that could also be exploring an increase in service levels for things that make sense. So, for example, working towards offering perhaps transit purchases at the pool, or allowing folks to pay for their recreation contracts at town hall, which we don't currently have in place right now. And then in general, to provide more overall support, whether somebody reaches out at the pool or at town hall. So as we continue to evolve, we're going to be doing a purposeful review of resources required to continue delivering services that adhere to our standards. And we're eagerly looking forward to see how the customer service software will streamline processes and improve efficiencies for both citizens and staff. And with the addition of our rec services team joining corporate customer service, we're going to be looking at how their skill sets will really complement and help with the resource challenges we have, given the increased volumes that we are seeing year over year. Happy to answer any questions.
That was awesome. You were very quick to jump in. CAO, I just want to make sure that people at home know that our mayor, Mayor Hall, joined us at 2:06. He was, as I said, on an important call with the MPP. So welcome, Mayor Hall. CAO?
Thank you, Chair Madigan. I did want to say a couple of other words of support for this group. I'm really proud of the progress that we've made. I don't think we've had before the last couple of years the statistics on the call numbers, the types, the questions and trends that we're getting. It's becoming a new source of information for me, and I think it should and is starting to evolve into a new source of information for council around what are people calling about and what is a community concerned about, so that you can make good decisions knowing that. They didn't mention a few of the things that they have. They have a wiki with all sorts of answers that people commonly ask for, so they can give them those answers more quickly. And this would be a first in my experience of 30 plus years to have two departments proactively come together and look at an amalgamation for the good of the corporation. That's not a natural evolution. It takes a lot of trust and some thinking about what's good for folks to make that proactively happen. So I'm really proud of that. I did notice I did want to point out one thing that's a little bit subtle that the average home listener might not have really heard, which is that the customer service standards and the fact that you're guaranteed an answer applies when you use our customer service folks. So I have to say, when people call me or a technician somewhere, they as part of the formal process, they'll get a faster, probably better answer by going in through customer service, and we'll be able to track those things. So I encourage folks to use Ingrid and her team as much as possible. And just wanted to point that piece out in case, so we get the best service we can for people out there that want answers. Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions or comments from the committee? Councillor Carrier.
Yes, thank you to Manager Masiak. So the slide that shows the 2022 topic contract drivers, I think it was the third slide. So waterfront parking, okay, that was an issue this year. I understand what I think that issue probably is with most people calling in. Taxes, I can't imagine people are calling and say, oh, I want to pay more taxes. But maybe it's something to do with process or how I file my taxes, or I'm having an issue online. Is there a greater breakdown of the context of the types of calls? So like PRC, oh, I can't get an arena booking time. Okay, that might be nice to know, of whether it's parks or something to do with trails or whatever. And then with Public Works with 831, it would be interesting to know how many were, the wastewater treatment plant stinks to high heaven today and I can't take it. It would be nice to have a breakdown, so that, because we get calls and emails too, and it's probably faster to call you and get an answer than it is us. I certainly agree with the CAO that way, but just so that we know in a little more detail what you're hearing, if it reflects what we are hearing. Be helpful to me anyway, or whoever's sitting here in the future, I should say.
Yeah, definitely won't be you, Chris, but no, good question. And then I guess you'll just take that under advice. Any other comments or questions? Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. And sort of to build on what Councillor Carrier had to say, I'd be curious to know, when we talk about all these interactions, whether they're what interactions are on the telephone and what interactions are on the internet, et cetera. I think some of us believe that the entire world runs on the internet, and I think that a lot of us are discovering that isn't necessarily the case. And also, through the chair, to Manager Masiak, are you getting any questions about voting now that we're running up to an election?
Yeah,
like
please,
how
please.
to and where to go and that sort of thing.
Thank you, through you, the chair, to Vice Chair McLeod, and partly to Councillor Carrier as well. So to answer some of those questions, first of all, we do have greater detail. This was just a bit of a high level report. So we do capture the main context. So I can definitely look to sharing that. So surprisingly or not surprisingly, about 43% of our inquiries come through phone, 38% in person, about 9% by email and online. So definitely an overwhelming majority through kind of, I'll say, a live contact, either person or phone. And, they do span various things. So, when we say waterfront parking, it's not necessarily just an issue. It would be, some people do need help to register, or maybe they wanted confirmation on how to register, or the rules around waterfront parking new. And, we had some new areas this year that were launched, as well as potentially disputing a parking ticket or inquiring. So we do capture a few different areas under each of these categories. So definitely a further breakdown can be provided. And yes, we have started receiving some questions on, am I on the voters list and how do I vote? So definitely ramping up, and I'm sure our Deputy Clerk Dahl is very excited about all the work that has to go into elections as well. She's been working around the clock. Thank you.
Mayor Hull.
Thank you, through you, Chair Madigan. My apologies for being late, and so perhaps this was captured at the outset. The new CSM that you're looking at, and also just outside of the CSM as it relates to the 2023 budget, are we looking at any expanded services in terms of hours of operation for contact?
So through your chair to Mayor Hull. Excuse me. We are, sorry, I feel like I've instantly forgotten the question. With the software, so that was previously budgeted for, so we are looking at implementing it this year. There potentially would be, subscription costs year over year, which would be expected. As far as expanding services, part of the integration of our rec services staff into corporate customer service, we acknowledge that the Aquatic Center does have extended hours. So we're hoping that just naturally there will be another option for people, so more in evenings and weekends, to get some key services during those times. We can definitely, continue to look at where it makes sense to expand services and the resources required to do that. So it's definitely part of the continuing journey as we look at just what we provide and really understanding a baseline for how we're able to provide services now, to know how we can ensure we're promising and delivering on those promises, I guess you could say.
Through you, is this the type of platform that, and I like that idea of the collaboration with our pool services, the Aquatic Center. that could be expanded, say, through to the library and the museum, given that they're open on weekends and are additional public contact. And then one maybe comment for our CAO, just as a takeaway, and just to pick up on Councillor Carrier's comment with regards to the breakdown of the statistics, and that is that these are stats as it's related to those that are coming, say, to your department, but obviously we are a point of contact as well. And it'd be interesting to see, without compromising confidentiality in terms of who's forwarding concerns, to be able to extract, email communication, say, to the office of the mayor on issues related to parking, parks, whatever, because then you could marry it potentially with the stats that you're getting. And then all of a sudden, something that's maybe 4 on your list actually is maybe 1, because when you take in the broader picture. So I offer that as a takeaway. Thank you.
Thank you. I think this is a great report. I think this finally gives us a little bit of quantifiable, measurable topics. It's funny that taxes and parking are the main 2 things that have to be paid for. So congratulations on this, and congratulations on, for lack of a better word, marrying the 2 departments together. I think what people forget, for the people that view us as the town of Collingwood, is every truck has the same logo on it. So they don't know what department you work for. They don't really care. Their question is their question. So thank you very much. This is a fantastic report. I'd be interested, just send us a text or an email later, what the tops were in 2020 and 2021, just to see if they're all the same, really, if it's taxes and parking. But I thank you. But for the rest of this meeting, it doesn't have to go through me. This is just a committee meeting. If the deputy mayor or the mayor or Councillor Carrier ask a question, just answer them. It does not have to go through me. Thank you very much. Thank you. All right, moving on. 5.2, electronic monitoring policy. Director Pegg is here. Welcome. And as I just stated, just Bob, just answer the questions. Whoever asks you, nothing has to go through me. Thank you so much.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. So this afternoon, I'm going to be providing an update on a new human resources policy. It's called electronic monitoring. Next slide, please. The Ontario government passed Bill 88, which is the Working for Workers Act 2022. This bill requires employers with 25 or more employees to have a written policy with regards to how we electronically monitor our employees, and to have this in place by October 11th of 2022. So for the policy, the term electronic monitoring means all forms of logging and use of electronic user data. So the intent of the legislation is to require employers to be transparent and open with our employees to ensure that they're aware of when we are electronically monitoring or logging their information, and to describe in what circumstances this occurs and how we may use that information. So in a world where so much is done online and through an electronic means, this policy ensures a clear understanding by both the town and our staff on what monitoring is taking place. Next slide, please. So the town will meet this legislative requirement through the CAO's approval of the policy, and has advised staff that the new policy will be in effect as of October the 11th. The information was shared with staff as I'll say a FYI at the all-staff CAO call on September the 28th. We certainly recognize that building trust with our staff and the community is extremely important to us. So we are committed to the responsible implementation of this policy and ensuring everyone's best interest. And this includes things like highlighting the benefits of the policy. So benefits are listed within the policy, but for those here, I'll name a few of them. So employee safety, so being able to easily locate an employee through pinging a cell phone or other electronic means in the event of an emergency. incident reviews. So if there was an event, like an accident or an altercation, we would be able to review any video footage, et cetera, that was available. Aid in cybersecurity, so tracking information if there was a breach of our cybersecurity, and to help protect our collective legal interests in the event that the town had to defend ourselves for an incident. And of course, among other purposes that are highlighted in the policy. Next slide, please. So passive versus active monitoring. So the policy does differentiate between the two. The town generally engages in passive electronic monitoring, which includes general logging of user data and information. And this information is always collected, but it's not always monitored. That said, there may be specific instances where engaging in active electronic monitoring is appropriate. So for example, for the purposes of IT security, so to detect abnormal activity on potential issues such as service disruptions, establishing usage or trending reports, or resolving a technical issue, as an input to enhance town services, or evidence for investigations or FOI requests. Next slide, please. The policy outlines that user data such as email activity during the use of town-issued electronic resources is always collected passively, and this information, although not regularly monitored, can be accessed or reviewed as it may be deemed appropriate under the policy, and the policy provides some very clear guidelines for staff. It's intended to work alongside existing policies regarding use of our computers and internet acceptable use, respect in the workplace, et cetera, confidentiality. So it marries up with a number of other policies. And then, of course, once the final policy is approved, the document will be distributed to all staff and will form part of our new employee onboarding program to ensure that we're very transparent with our employees on electronic monitoring on town devices. So next slide. So that's the update on the HR policy, and I'm happy to take any questions that the committee may have.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from the committee? Councillor Carrier.
Yes, through you to Director Pegg. A question. So, yes, it pertains to staff. Does it also pertain to elected officials? We both serve the corporation. Does the policy also address elected officials, or do we have our own separate policy for those listening at home?
Yeah, that's a great question. That's something I'll have to consult with the clerk and CAO on while we're looking at the final policy for approval. Certainly with any town issued device is captured in the policy the way it's currently drafted. But certainly something that we can circle back with the clerk and CAO on and be sure policies that may apply to them.
Thank you. Thank you.
CEO, I saw you go for the button to hit I would like to speak, so I was just assuming.
Yes, I think that's a great question. I do believe that we do passively monitor, electronic information from devices used by council members as well, and that we should proactively consider that information with the employee information so that everyone's aware.
Yeah. Is that good, Kurt? Any other questions or comments? Okay, I have a few. So when you're pinging someone's cell phone, will the department head or manager have to kind of register a reason of why they're pinging their staff's cell phone, even though they're engaged in working for the town? I think that might bring up some privacy issues if they have their cell phone on, if they're on call, if they have their cell phone on when they're on lunch. So would there have to be something filled out so then the manager, department head, or whoever was doing it, you might not have that answer. That's okay. I can leave that with you. But
Absolutely. So there is a very strict requirements within the policy on when that information can be accessed. So it's certainly not the intention, nor is it within the policy that we could just arbitrarily ping our employees' location or whatnot. So there is a process outlined in the policy to ensure that we continue to build trust, and this isn't intended to be a for lack of a better phrase, a big brother policy where we're monitoring our every employee's move and action. And again, I'll just reiterate, it is a legislative requirement that we implement the policy. So this wasn't a town initiated policy. It is a requirement through the province.
No, I'm definitely not arguing the legislation, as one of my companies has more than 25 employees. So I'm not arguing the legislation whatsoever. I just want to know that these are the questions that might come to us as town employees might say, do they get to know where we are at all time? My second question is, when looking at staff email or correspondence, will the department head or clerk or CAO have to fill out something kind of like an FOI form? I know that in past, if people had access to emails, things would have been a lot better, but we're trying to build trust again, not remember. So that will be my question or comment. I got a smile from the CAO, so I think she appreciated that. Thank you.
Yes, so the policy does have a process in place, but I'll definitely make sure that we have a accountability tracker to make sure that we know when the information's being pulled. It also certainly would depend on the circumstances. So if the information was required for a human resources investigation, there would be a different process in terms of who would have access. Whereas if the information was being pulled due to an emergency where an employee, we couldn't locate them and their family was concerned, would be a different process followed in that way as well.
So I will leave this with one bit of advice, looking at our past to learn from it. The next council, when this is initiated, my advice would be get them to sign something that says every email that you send or every text that you send to a staff member, you do not have to be asked whether our CAO, our clerk, or our HR can look at it. I think that will make it a lot easier, that we will not relive the past, and we can push forward for a positive future for the town of Collingwood. Thank you. Thank you very much. 5.3, Parks, Rec, and Culture Departmental updates. Director Collver.
Thank you, Chair. And actually, Manager Cubitt is also going to join me because I need all the help I can get. We thought it would be a good opportunity to provide a brief update. Oh, somebody's got my slides up there. Perfect. I don't have to run the deck. So perfect. So I'm going to ask Manager Martin to start us off with a quick update on the Enviro Park.
Okay. Thank you, members of the committee. As you're aware, the contractor is working diligently with many moving parts, also within the face of a serious supply chain issue to complete all of the works. It's very, very close, but it's a matter of juggling a couple of different contractors that are trying to finish off some of the projects before it can be open to the public. We're very appreciative of their attention to detail and ensure a very high standard for the completed project. Again, we're extremely close to the new playground being open. Likelihood that opening may be the week of October 17 or 24, again, depending on these sub-trades that have parts that have been ordered for the finishing touches. Primary issues outstanding are final concrete pour and minor adjustments by supplying vendors to ensure the CSA compliance for playground safety. So just as a reminder, all our playgrounds have to be CSA compliant. We inspect them on a monthly basis, and in order for the town to take ownership of a new playground, it has to pass a CSA compliance review. Next slide, please. So some exciting pictures to show what's been happening. The rubberized playground surfacing provides for the inclusive play, accessible play. There's, you can see the ship at the bottom, to kind of keep with our theme of water. And on the top left, also another view of the ship with the decorative playground surfacing, and on the top right, the lighthouse with the large slide that I'm sure everybody is very excited to be able to use. Next slide, please. And again, the Firefly Forest. So staff have been great maneuvering through the cedar forest, putting up these LED lights that are responsive to voice or music. We can program them, or we have a public art piece of the owl that kids can scream into, and the lights will reflect the noise that it hears. So it's very exciting. Next slide. I'll hand this over to Karen regarding the Art Center.
Thanks, Wendy. Okay, so the Town of Collingwood has partnered again with Nordicity and JIMO to complete phase 2 of the Art Center feasibility study. We started back up in September, and this phase is expected to conclude in April of 2023. I'll just mention the objectives of this phase are to validate the feasibility of new arts facilities, including the market, operational, financial, economic, fundraising, and social impacts that would underline a recommendation on the size and seating capacity. Secondly, to assess the feasibility of a short list of sites and recommend a single site that council would put forth for any further consultation deemed to be required. And third, that we would determine the target arts disciplines that would be served by the facility, and looking at space for live performance of theater, music, and dance, public galleries and exhibition space for visual artists. We've noted that it would most likely have secondary halls, workshop space, parking, admin offices, and rehearsal space and studios. That's all from phase 1. So from those 3 objectives, the results of phase 2 will determine the recommended site, size, and scope for an arts and culture center. We've laid out the process, what we expect to be done over the next several months to bring us to April. And I'll just note that PRC is meeting with Nordicity monthly at minimum. And since commencing this phase, we've attended our kickoff meeting, reviewing the project objectives and the plan. We've had a site selection review meeting. We attended an evaluation framework and consultation review meeting. And we've assembled a contact list for the consultants to connect with staff members from different departments, including planning and engineering. We're excited about where we're going with this.
Awesome. Next slide, please. I'm going to take over for the last couple of updates, and that's to do with the Sunset Point shoreline repairs. I'm positive anybody who's been anywhere in the vicinity of Sunset Point will see the massive amount of shoreline repairs that are underway. And we're anticipating completion shortly. We've had to do a request and receive approval for an extension to the season of in-water work in order to be able to get it done under the current contract. And so that's been approved, and we're moving forward for as soon as possible completion. We've been hearing some comments from the public that the top of the new revetment is higher than some people might have expected. And there's a couple of things that that needs to be mentioned about that. One is that going into this, and I know that it was a bit of time ago, but when the water was very high and the storms were hitting and taking away large swaths of property, we would have loved to have had these revetments in place to protect the land. We're in a place where we feel like we needed to build to that potential. And so you're seeing revetments that reflect engineering that is responding to that future high water mark in the hope that we don't have to go through this kind of remediation again. I'll also mention too that there is some backfilling to be done, some ground repair and backfilling to be done that will go up to the edge of the revetments, and that may help with some people's perception of the revetments being a little higher than ground level. But at the end of the day, what we were really trying to do is just make sure that this very, very large project wouldn't have to be repeated anywhere in the very near future, and hopefully not ever. Just also want to point out that no water accesses have been removed, that all of the public accesses to water at Sunset Point remain and are intended to be promoted and supported for public access. And also that the large woody debris treatment that I know council was made aware of some time ago, it's still in place. It will remain in place. It's undergoing analysis to see if it's a viable solution for Georgian Bay or Great Lakes shorelines. We still do believe that we're the only test site for this kind of treatment on the Great Lakes, and there is a lot of interest ranging from people in the engineering field all the way through to the Saugeen Ojibwe Nation, who are always looking for ways to see shoreline softening rather than hardening. So we're all hoping for a good outcome, and so far so good. Next slide, please. And that's just a quick picture of some of, it does show a bit of the mass of what's been done there. It's a lot of work, a lot of material. Again, the provider's been very, very good. And so we're appreciative of the work. Next slide. And then I know that there's some people who are, as we're heading into the colder weather, splash pads aren't really a thing right now, but I do think people are excited for what might come next spring. So we're looking at the Awen water play progress. So our footings and pilings have been completed. This is the underpinnings for everything that will be completed. The waterfall foundation has been poured. So this is the large water feature. It's been poured. The artwork for the waterfall that was provided by Dr. Redbird, Dr. Duke Redbird, and his late son, J. Bell Redbird, is underway. We have a maquette, which I'll show you shortly, which is kind of exciting to see. It's a bit of a small form of the big form that's going to end up on the waterfall wall. Water play activators are underway. I'll show you some pictures of those in a second. The armor stone assembly and placement is complete. So this is a lot of the surrounding and sort of natural seating spaces. The planter concrete curbs are complete. The exterior plumbing is complete. The water play pad curbs are underway. So this is the surrounds for the slabs themselves that will host all of the fun stuff. The mechanical building that is also a washroom building will be constructed, and as much site development as possible will be completed before we get to hopefully the snow flying, or hopefully not shortly thereafter, but trying to get to the place where the work all moves indoors, so that we can work on the mechanical room and the finishing work that will hopefully be completed by the end of the winter. And we're still, with the great support of YWI, our contractor, we're still anticipating full completion in time for the water play season of 2023. So that's very exciting. And if you flip the slide, please. So this is just a reminder of the waterfall wall. It's a bit of a curved monolith at the very top of a heightened berm. So nothing is blocking the view of the Awen gathering place, but it is another elevated space within the park. Next slide, please. And this is the maquette I mentioned earlier. It's a bit of a scale model of of Dr. Redbird's artwork. It's a way of practicing before we go into making a very sophisticated design happen in real life on the waterfall. Next slide. These are a couple of the activators in progress. The frog is, the activator panel is on its back. And the heron is actually going to be quite a bit different. After some review, as Wendy mentioned, everything we do has to be comply with CSA standards. So the heron's actually going to be tipped forward so that that beak doesn't become an issue for kids running around the splash pad. And the activator, I believe, is on one of the wings. The next slide, please. And then this is just a bit of a diagram I snipped to show you the washroom building and mechanical building. We made some designs around the roofing to help give it a bit of an aesthetic presence, and excited to get more flushing washrooms out in our parks, especially in the Harborview area. So that's the presentation. I think the next slide just sort of asks for any questions anybody might have for myself, Manager Cubitt or Manager Martin.
Comments from the committee. Councillor Carrier.
Thank you. First one, can we have a copy of the presentation since we don't have it? Two, if we go to the slide where it talks about the process for the theater center, please.
Oh.
I think there was 2 slides, Chris. Which one are you looking for? Do you know?
Well, I don't have the copy of the presentation, so I have to see it
I was
too.
just asking if you were remembered.
No. Yes. So it kind of reminds me of the, for the next council, it reminds me of the process that we went through for the way back when, 2004, 2005 multi-use facility, where you develop the needs of the community and then you go through some type of site matrix to determine where you want to have that facility. And we also got down to the costs of the facility and how much it was going to cost the municipality. And I remember we made an application for a provincial grant, and we received a grant of about $8.2 million, about $4.1 million from the feds and $4.1 million from the province. And unfortunately, the council of the day that accepted it then turned around and reversed themselves on that decision, and we returned $8.1 or $8.2 million. And I remember, if I remember correctly, that was former Mayor Cooper that did that, former Councillor Rick Lloyd, former Councillor Ian Chadwick, and former Councillor Sandberg, and I can't remember who the 5th was. But I wish you well as you go through this process, that you get the funding, because the price tag that we saw was significant. The amount of money I'm hearing that the group out there is asking the community for is only $5 million, even though the price tag seemed substantially higher. But I certainly wish you well in the endeavors of seeking grants in such a significant process. I hope that we don't return funds this time. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your history lesson, and it's much appreciated your comments of support for the Arts Center. Thank you. Any other comments from the committee? Thank you very much. Fantastic reports. Good news. Congrats on the Enviro Park. Holy smokes. That's tremendous. That's all I can say is tremendous. I thought our mayor was going to speak to that, but he will at the last council meeting. Congratulations. Thank you. Well, that wraps up our departmental updates today. So I'm going to look to the clerk under public delegations. If there is anyone, there is not. Excellent. Not that it's not excellent that they don't want to comment, but excellent that our staff give such fantastic reports that they don't have any questions. Any other business? Councillor Carrier.
Thank you. If council would just indulge me for a moment, this is, as you mentioned earlier, my last Corporate and Community Services Standing Committee meeting, and I just wanted to thank each of you for your help for me to learn this new system as I came on board in March. I would like to also compliment the staff that address this committee on a regular basis for their professionalism and their high ethical standard. It is something that I walk away from this knowing that the municipality is in great hands. Not only with the professional public service that we have, but the elected officials that I've worked alongside. So thank you.
Thank you very much for your kind words, and I'm sure that the staff appreciate them as well. It's been a long time coming for our staff to get recognized the way that they should have always been. So thank you for that. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, I just want to say thank you very much. This is the last Corporate and Community Services Standing Committee of this term. So on behalf of the Vice Chair, who was Chair for 2 years, and the rest of the committee, thank you. Thank you to all the departments that report to this committee. Thank you to the Fire Department that didn't have anything today, but I know that they're watching. They've been a good source of education and influence on this committee. So we thank you very much. And seeing none, I'm going to look for an adjournment from Mayor Hull. With pleasure. All those in favor? Passed. Thank you so much. We'll see you all at 5.